I talk a lot about the feminism stuff and like how women being viewed as soulless or second class or like really, I mean, there's a better way. Just viewing women as daughters of God with souls definitely makes a society just happier, better. The children are raised in a good environment. And you can see that there's a lot of good Mormon households. Like, that's how the Mormons consider women. I mean, the church gets a lot of criticism for women not having the priesthood, but I think like viewing women as equal daughters of God, as children of God, as equals in the house of God, I think that's somewhat revolutionary, even in Christian churches. I think the underlying fundamental belief is that women are less. I mean, I think culturally that's shifted, but I think that hasn't always been the case culturally. And even when the church got started, that might have been like radical doctrine or like a radical political view. That was like a new thing. I'm not sure when that became a new thing. Maybe with the Great Awakening or Enlightenment or that period where Industrial Revolution, like we came out of the Dark Ages, maybe that's when we started considering women as people. You know, that could be a fruit of the women as people idea. By their fruits you shall know them, you know. You shall know ideas by the fruits of the ideas as well, I think. It's not in the Bible, but I think it plays out in real life. Anyway, the Bible's more about people. So, okay, women have souls, right? However, but men have traditionally been thought of as rational and logical and practical and functional, you know, masculine traits. And I've thought for a while that I have pretty masculine traits. I'm like, I feel like I'm somewhat masculine in my approach to life. I'm very functional. I was thinking about this because my cell phone case is not anything fancy. I don't care about trends. I really don't care about those magazines. You know, I think they're interesting to look at. I used to look at them with my cousins on like a family trip, but like, I don't know. I would never care to buy a fashion magazine just on my own in regular life. It just makes no sense to me. And I was like, fashion often means more expensive and less functional. Like, I like function, and I don't like to spend a lot of money on things that don't matter. And I was like, why? Like, that seems like a very masculine trait. And why has that been traditionally? I was thinking about why that is in my life. And I think it stems back to the Isaiah stuff with the bells and crisping pins. But it happened even before that. Just the idea that we shouldn't be trying to be seen of men. And I think I heard early on in my childhood where it's just kind of a cultural thing, just an understanding that the Bible says and Jesus says to do is, you know, pray in your closet, don't try to be seen of men. Just like basically the idea of doing things for show or doing things to be seen, like so people think you look cool. Doing things to look cool, that kind of stuff is like bad to do. I just had that understanding from a kid. Oh, Jesus says not to, and Jesus is the boss. Like, Jesus is that one true knower of everything. Jesus knows everything, and if Jesus said not to do it, then you really shouldn't do it. Like, why are you doing it then? You're an adult. I look around and see these things. Like, this is obviously what Jesus said. How come people aren't just doing it? So I was trying to do it in my life. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do it. We'll see how, because people would say, well, it's because it's really hard. You know, why I would ask, of course, because I never keep my mouth shut, why aren't people doing it? And the answer is because it's hard. It's like, why aren't you doing this? Well, it's hard. It's hard to do. You don't understand. You're a kid. You're whatever, idealistic. You don't understand. It's hard. So I'm like, well, I think I could do it. I think as an adult, I'll be doing it. If I just try to do it, I'll just do it. And it's largely been the case, but not as much as I thought. I definitely got a taste of humble pie when that stuff is hard, and it's hard. It's insidious. Those little things, you have to like root them out, weed them out. You have to be constantly cultivating your mind garden because you have to be rooting out these things, and you don't even notice it's a weed sometimes. You're like, oh my gosh. And the weeds, the tares are growing up with the wheat. So some of the scriptures are about like your mind garden and what you're cultivating inside of your mind, like your thoughts, right? Hating your enemy, hating your brother. Well, that's one step toward murdering. So stop that. Weed that thought out, root it up, pull it out. But it's really hard to do. It is hard. Here I am, I'm 40 years old and I've got a lot of that stuff. I feel like I've understand like the Isaiah stuff, like at least the first half, like with the bells and crisping pins, that's really the best part. I feel like the other stuff seems really cultural, extremely specifically cultural, that it does not seem to apply. But the bells and crisping pins do apply. The round tires like the moon, oh my gosh. And the mincing and walking and mincing as they go. And I think that for some reason, the masculine traits resemble the traits of not trying to be seen of the world. Like they just want function over fashion, right? And so I'm like, I think that also, but not all men, and I think more so now than ever, men are also into fashion over function. And I wonder if function over fashion, the whole stemming of this came from the Bible. It might be a biblical understanding. And the fact that men traditionally were more involved in the church. That's why men are often mentioned. There's all these mentions of men. You know, we talk about that. History is all men-based. It's all men. It's all men in there. Yeah, because men were on the stage. Men were out there being the players of the world. Women were staying home raising the children. Right? Men are out there doing this stuff, so they have to be... Men are the ones who are interested in how to treat others, like moral action, because they're out doing it, right? They're out being in the world, interacting with each other. And women have their own set of ethics at home, and sure, women and men have the same. Like, it's not as drastic as I'm making it out to be, but likely there's some basis in this. So hear me out. Like, it's just... men were out there in society, so they had to learn how to deal with each other, and so then the morals and ethics came in. Like, what is the proper behavior? How are we going to act to make our society good? I'm largely basing this off the Bible as well, and a biblical understanding of the universe, and I fully understand that in places like, I don't know, pre-Roman Europe, things might have been a lot different. But anyway, men are on the, like, a lot different, like, so different you wouldn't even recognize the world. Like, you couldn't even understand their way of thinking. You're so different. Maybe. Anyway. Or how they're viewing, like, just their cultural way of viewing the world. There's so many, like, viewing women as not having souls. That's an easy one you could see and be like, oh, how would anybody think that? But we're likely thinking those kinds of things that were so bizarre. They would be so bizarre to think to another culture. That's what I'm saying, is that there's bizarre thinkings that we're doing that we don't even realize we're doing, and we're like, no, that's not true. We are the top-notch society. We know everything. We have science. And it's like, well, everyone has science, but that's just a human trait. Learned, like, the scientific method is just normal human curiosity and trying to figure out the world spelled out. And it's like, and it makes sense. It's like, well, it has to be repeatable. You know, there's just different things that, like, that make sense, that are defined. Like, the scientific method is so cool that it's clearly defining what humans do intuitively when they're trying to figure stuff out. But okay, anyway, but our worldview of, like, how men and women are, what our roles in society, gender, just like it's likely been different. Like, in pre-Roman Europe, it was likely a different thing. I don't know, maybe women have always been thought of as soulless, but I think have been pockets and times when women haven't. Now is definitely one of those. Anyway, okay. But for some reason, it seems like women do focus more on fashion than function. And so did the idea of souls, or the idea that women are less than, did that come from the idea because women are just naturally more focusing on fashion and round tires like the moon? Or is it women focusing on that because they're not part of the world stage or society? And is, like, what's the cause and what's the like the reaction? Like, what's the actual chain of events? Because, like, it could be that men realize women are so functionless, they're just so frivolous, you know, they definitely need a man to balance. Because if we didn't have the Bible, like, women's natural tendency, to me, looks like we would just be all about that fashion and just, like, it takes a lot of energy and time to think about that all the time, shopping and wasting money on things that don't matter. Like, is this going to feed you in the winter? That kind of thing. But women are practical too. Like women in like Little House, she's not focused, but she is focused on fashion a bit, like to as much as she can. That's what I've noticed about Ma in Little House. To the extent that she can, she's extremely fashionable and vain of the world, extremely focused on image, like so much. And they're so poor and they're living this way, but it is about image. It's image based. Super interesting. But it's in the Bible not to be image based. And so I don't know. I think that's why I consider myself to have masculine traits, because those are typically masculine traits, is to be function over fashion. But I also think the Bible's kind of being thrown out in society. We're like, you know what? We want separation of church and state. We don't care about this stuff. We don't like this stuff. We don't like what people do when they get a hold of this stuff and start going crazy on this stuff. They start doing the branchy stuff, and it goes, and we're going to consider this to be not a good thing. And so the Bible's definitely been thrown out generally in society, not by all society, but a lot of society has been like, you know what, it's fine if you want to do it in your own time, but like generally we don't want this like shoved down our throats. And I think that's understandable. Definitely the way the Bible has been shoved down people's throats is definitely understandable. However, I think there could be a place for the Bible. Like the Bible makes sense. Function over fashion makes sense. It makes you happier. Okay. But anyway, there's been a huge surge of just people in general not caring about function, caring about fashion over function. I think men and women now. I think there's not as much of a difference in the genders, right? The men and women's roles in society are becoming pretty much the same, just like in that book. Oh, which one was it? I don't think it's 1984. I think it's Brave New World, when men and women are just kind of the same, I don't know. It's really, really interesting. And it's not bad. It's not good. It's just how it is. But I'm just wondering if this masculine trait really is rooted in the Isaiah stuff or the Jesus stuff, when he says, basically, stop trying to be seen of the world all the time. But I think that's a good principle. I think society would run better if people didn't care about just how much they looked as much as like just being good. Like, I just want to look good. I just want to look like I'm doing good things. But I really want to do all that wicked stuff on the side. I think if people just didn't do that, if we had an impeccability, we had like the insides match the outsides, the private life matches the public life more, I think society would just run better as a whole generally. So therefore, that seems like a good fruit. It seems like by their fruits you shall know them. You can know this is good because if everyone acted that way, it would be better. It would logically just be better. We all know that. We all want that to happen in our lives. When we're dealing with other people, we want them to be honest in their dealings. We want their insides to match their outsides. We don't want to be tricked. Do you know how tired I am of being tricked? I'm just tired of being tricked. And you know what? I can't ask for a refund because everyone thinks I'm tricking them, because it's all about tricking. Our society is a society of tricks. And look at what we're doing, and look how it's sucking now. See the fruits of the tricks? This is not about who's president. This is about who's tricking who. Stop tricking. Tricking is stealing and lying. Like, I'm going to take this back and return it to the store to get money as like this refund scam. And it's like, or I'm going to steal to get the refund, or I'm just going to like use it and then take it back. Like, I don't know, just tricky. Just stop tricky. We don't need to be tricks. That's lying. That's why we're not supposed to do that stuff. It's because it logically makes our whole society worse. Yes, it's good for the individual who is doing it right now. Like if I trick my brother and I get gain, I like sell a product that's really broken or bad, or I advertise it falsely or whatever, just to like make money, and like they get screwed over a little bit later. Like that trickles around. The tricks trickle. It trickles around. And so now we can see what's happening to all of us. And it's like, yes, the few are making it bad for the whole, but I think most people are trying to do that in society. A lot of people are doing that. Like I'm at work, and I'm not doing this, of course, but people do it where they're at work and it's like, oh, well, I'm going to stay clocked in just because I deserve it, or like I feel like I deserve it, right? Okay, even when I'm not working, or when I'm working, I'm just gonna look at my phone. It's like da-da-da-da, and that's current today. But that stuff was going on when I was younger too, before phones. Everyone's just kind of trying to shirk.
In half a mile, turn left onto Yoakum Street.
But I think more people now than ever are shirking in their work. And so all these tricks, all these little lies and deceptions, the honest day work, the shirking, the addictions, it just all goes hand in hand. And now our society sucks and it's expensive at the grocery store. And I'm getting
Take the next left onto Yoakum Street. Then you will arrive at your destination.
I'm getting less quality and it costs more money.
In a quarter mile, turn left onto North Hopkins Street.
I think it stems from back to being seen of the world. If we
Take the next left onto North.
Could do things without trying to be seen of the world, like I'm not trying to be cool, I'm just doing my doings. I'm just doing what I feel like I want to be doing, which is largely like friendly. I don't know. It's just, I think the world would be better. I think most people are just friendly. I think most people just want to have a good time here. We just want to make things right. Most people would be super agreeable and say, yes, I will pay the extra 50 cents a dozen of eggs if you'll let the chickens out in the grass. Absolutely. For sure. Most people would want that. The problem is everyone thinks they're being tricked. I'm being tricked. They're just telling me they're out on the grass and they're actually not. They're just feeding them beta carotene to make the yolks better, whatever. It's just, I'm so sick of the tricks. Can we just not do the tricks? Can't we make good cars, Dad? Don't people need good cars? Can't we sell good cars, Dad? Why can't we just do good things? Like, why can't we just do it the good way? Really? Like, it's coming around. It's getting after your children. Your children are suffering. We are suffering for all these tricks. Like, the tricky generation, the greatest generation. Were they the tricky generation? Who started all these tricks? I'm calling them to repentance. But we need to stop that. We need to recognize that our society, this is ours now. Like, they messed it up, sure. But we don't have to keep doing that. We need to start weeding out and rooting out the tricks in our lives. We need to start weeding out and rooting out these ideas of what is making us want to trick. Like, what the crap is making us want to be so tricky? What is so broken in our society that we feel like we need to do that in order to get what we need? Our needs met. Being seen in the world. And I think women are notoriously bad for this. Being seen in the world, we need to stop that. But I don't know why, if it's cultural. And if it has to do with, like, the way women have been seen, there could be a reason. I'm not saying women are bad, but, I mean, we need to step it up as women. Not all women do it. I have a lot of friends who don't do the flashy stuff and, like, the trendy stuff and the fashionable stuff. And I'm not saying flashy, trendy, fashionable is bad in and of itself. I do think aesthetics, I have gotten understanding on aesthetics, how aesthetics do matter and do make things good for everyone. When things look nice, it just does feel nice. So there could be, I mean, there is a place for aesthetics, but is there a place for fashion over function and fashion at all costs and being seen of men at all costs, even when we ourselves are not good? We're just going to be seen as good, right? Our children are going to look really nice at church because we're a good family. Has nothing to do with, like, the Bible. I don't know. It's just, I think there could be a better way. I think understanding appearances, first impressions don't mean crap. I have never been right. My first impression of people is never right. They are so much more complex than my first impression. My first impression is full of judgments, too, on their character and their moral behavior. I see a woman fully dressed up to the nines, and I immediately judge her as, like, a bad person. The really, really well put together women with the nice, like, the cosmetic surgery and the makeup, 100%, I do judge. I judge quite a lot. To me, that's an indication. To me, that's just like a physical, like a flag. Like, I am trying to be seen of the world, and it's like, oh, that's a bad person. I have that instant judgment. And so I need to stop that judgment and say, that's a person. That person's likely hurting in some way, which is making them do this appearance thing. But they're still a person, and they're likely complex and deep. Most of my friends, well, I would actually say all of my friends, which are very few, I'm not as diverse in that area, of women who are actually really well put together and, like, super dressed to the nines, you know, Botox, whatever they do. the makeup, everything's 100%. It's all about image and everything. My friends who are like that, they're all super complex. They're all super like intelligent, smart, like spiritual, understanding. Like they understand stuff, so it doesn't make sense to me. It's always this weird like flip of like, this is like a really good person, but on the outside, it's like a red flag. It's like red flag city, you know? But I guess we just need to get to know people before we judge them. Yes. Secondly, though, the image stuff, I do think is kind of a stressful pursuit, and I think could be lightened up on. And also, there's a lot of self-loathing that goes along with that. So it's like, well, you might be a good person, and you are a good person, and you're a dear child of God. Letting go of some of that image-based stuff is really freeing. Unless it's something you just like to do. Maybe you like to do it, but really analyze yourself and find out for yourself, do you really like to do this stuff? Or would you rather just live more of a man's life, a masculine life, right? Why does it have to be a masculine trait where I wake up and go? I wake up in the morning, I just brush my hair straight. I do have long hair. I just like long hair, though. It's spiritual for me. Shaving your head is very amazingly freeing. If you don't like a morning routine, I will say the short haircut is nice. Shaving your head, just because women, when they have short hair, they feel like they have to style it in some way, but when you shave your head, there's no styling. And there's like the Sinead O'Connor vibe. There's the one lady who does that movie with the shaved head. Demi Moore? Is that who it is? Okay. There's a feminine way of having a shaved head. It's a really great hairstyle for people who don't like to get ready. Anyway, I just brush it straight and put it in a braid. And it's the man's lifestyle. I just put on my same outfit I wear every single day, just kind of like my uniform. And that's always considered a masculine trait. I'm going to say that's a biblical trait, though. That's like an Isaiah trait. Just like, I'm going to not care to be seen of the world. I'm not a respecter of persons. I mean, these traits, these kind of lifestyle ideas is definitely, for me anyway, freedom and better. It's what true freedom is. Freedom ain't free, right? Well, freedom is free. It just takes a lot of work. It just takes a lot of effort. It's not going to cost you any money. It's not going to cost, I don't know, could cost your life, I guess. Yeah. Freedom ain't free. You don't just get free by existing. But you definitely have to exist in order to be free and understand the concept of freedom. And like, I should point to you an indication that you actually do exist because you're here. Who's here worrying about whether or not what I'm saying is true then? If you don't think that you exist, then what's that thing there that's worrying and complaining to me and worrying about what's true or not and like caring at all that it's what I say is true? Rocks don't care if what I say is true. They just know the truth. They're just there. Rocks just exist, but you're there and you know you're there. Rocks might also know that they are there. Molecules and atoms might just have a unified consciousness or just have like I would imagine like a humming, just some sort of like meditative consciousness kind of, but we are here manipulating with intent the rocks. We're moving the rocks around with intent. And I think that indicates something. I think if you look at it and just truly, if this time you truly think about it, I don't want to be like that, but like really truly look at it and say, what are we doing? We are, if you're an atheist, you're stuff, you're a thing made up of other things, and you move the things around. So you reach out, the thing that you're made out of, that you have like mental control over, like telekinesis. Who is that you that's reaching out? Like reach out your hand right now. This is a headless thing. This is a headless experiment kind of thing. Just reach your hand out and move that object that's in front of you. You telekinetically, if you're an atheist, if you don't have a soul or like your brain just does it, like it just reaches out and moves something according to intent, your intention. Who's the you that's intending? The you part. The brain? Like you are different than a rock.
Because the rock, even if it's existing, even if it's conscious, it's not reaching anything out and moving something else. Like, it's just happy to just be there. We're not happy just being here. We're life. We're existing. We move around. We're animate, an animate object. What is the animation part? Oh, it's just these molecules that happen to like conglomerate out in the right way in order to make the inanimate animate. And it's like, yes. I mean, that's what is. That is what is. But like, how and why? And like, I guess you don't really need to have a why if it just is the way it is. But how? Where did we come from? We just sprang into existence, or maybe we're like organized. And that's one reason I think the Joseph Smith stuff is correct, because he talks about organized intelligences, and that makes a lot of sense to me. So we're like intelligence, but we're organized intelligence. So we are intelligence that's organized, right? Like our brains are just organized. If you think about all the molecules that make up our brain, we're literally made out of the same stuff. Like stars are made out of, we are all made of stars. We are all made of stars. No one can stop us now, because we are all made of stars. We're literally made of stars, okay? We're organized in this way. And it's almost like we organized ourselves. Like when I had a baby, my body organized all the food that I ate. It organized that, and pieces of my own body and pieces of itself, it moved those things along in some sort of like extremely complicated assembly line into my womb to then put into the baby. And my body assembly lined all the building materials into the tube, and then the baby's body took those materials and started to build itself with those materials. And the bodies are doing it all on their own. Maybe not. Maybe our consciousness is intended on some level, because without consciousness, maybe our bodies would not be moving these things along at all, or the things would just sit there like rocks. Rocks just sit there. They don't move around. Water moves around with currents and tides. Something pushes water, but water doesn't move on its own. Things don't move on their own. Ourselves, our consciousnesses move on their own. Well, we move them. We are the thing that's moving them. Who are we? We're this like thing, this like existing like consciousness. There is something there. There's someone there, an intent. And that goes back to the John 1 stuff with intent. He calls like the basement bottom level of reality and consciousness, awareness and understanding, intent. Sometimes he calls it the Nagual. I think the real name is Nagual, but he also names it as intent, because Nagual, I mean, it doesn't really have a meaning. It's just kind of some sounds, right? But we kind of have some understanding what intention is and what intent is. So it's kind of like gives a little bit further clarification to the word. Because we have some cultural understanding, but the word is also defined within the culture where somebody would understand Nagual. And so like the word has more meanings than just the surfacey one. It's like the alethiometer in Golden Compass or his dark materials. Lyra looks at the alethiometer and sees the meaning, and there's like many different meanings to those symbols. And it's the same thing with words like intent. There's many different meanings to the word intent. You have to figure out what you mean by that, and even understanding and learning more definitions. And that's what line upon line, precept upon precept is about. It's about defining words and learning new words and learning new definitions to words, like the definition to God. What is God's definition? And it likely changes throughout your life, right? Your childhood understanding of the nature of God is going to be different than your adult understanding of the nature of God as you get more information, as you try things out and do different stuff. And what does it mean to gain knowledge and to understand? It's like awareness, just becoming more aware of more things. Just awareness, expanding awareness. I just read in The Fire from Within. It's by Carlos Castaneda. Done one. And it's something I've read before, but have never like heard before, if that makes sense. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Well, I just heard about when he says, like, what's the purpose of the eagle, or what's the purpose of the eagle's emanations? The eagle is like the awareness. And it's like, well, it's the purpose of awareness is to increase awareness. It's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. We are an aware existing, in an aware and existing state here. I'm a thing that's aware of the other things and aware of myself being aware. And pure awareness, where could that go? It could go anywhere. It's pretty much powerless. I mean, powerless. It's pretty much limitless, all powerful. Your awareness can likely do anything. And here we are in this position, in this form. What caused the awareness to enter into the things, enter into the stuff? What caused awareness to enter in, like, to my kid, for example, as their body is being built, literally from the ground up, from like nothing, from just two gametes meeting, a chance meeting of two gametes in the universe. And there you are. And you are. You exist. An organized intelligence. Your body was organized for you. It organizes itself right now. If it was disorganized, like if this protein didn't fold a correct way, well, it'd be called having a handicap, wouldn't it? Or you would have died. You would have been miscarried because your proteins and your body would not be organized in such a way that it could continue to be organized, right? Your body just didn't work. But you happen to have a working body that was able to be organized in a way that lets you survive and exist and be alive for a little bit more.